So what I have on this board here today, I did it in a way so it can be time effective. I have a board where we have applied the primer, the Epic Fondo Universale. And once the primer was dry, we apply one coat of Marmorino Supreme. In the color, let me tell you the color. Color is Verona. So if this is something that you'd like to know and how to get in the future, this is Marmorino Supreme in Verona color. Okay. I like to say that one of the main things of any Venetian plaster to work, in most of the cases, would be to have a dry first coat, because Venetian plasters will work mainly based on suction. So if the first coat is dry, when we apply the second coat, because the suction will be happening, we will be able to compress it and to make it shiny, or depending on the situation, to achieve the finish we want based on that suction. Of course, something that we have to develop will be to be able to control this suction. So, to be able to work, adjust our speed or workability based on the size of the walls as well, because, sometimes if you have a bigger wall, you might not have enough time, or maybe another time we want to get to the finish. Also, the temperature, doing one wall in the winter and doing one in the summer are two completely different things. So here we have a small board. What I want to show you is how we apply Marmorino Supreme. So what I have here, this is 1 kilogram, 1 kg of Marmorino Supreme. This is called the sample pot. So it's good to mention that on all of our products, you can get a sample pot. I'm talking about all the plasters here. You can get a sample pot. So you see the catalog with all the colors, and if there's something that you want, you can get a 1 kg. And this is actually a great thing, because whenever you want to do a sample for a customer, which I always recommend to do, you don't have to buy an entire tub of material. You can only get one. You can get only 1 kg. Okay. Here I have is what I call a stirrer. It's a very handy tool, because when we have these 1 kg pots, it's always good to give them a quick mix before we start. So I must say this is the perfect tool for that. What I have here is the medium trowel, which is 240, if I'm not wrong, 240 millimeters from Pavan. The type of the trowel is called Gold of Venice. And if you ask me, and I'm pretty sure that not just me, this is regarded as one of the best, if not the best, Venetian plaster trowels in the world. Okay, they're still handmade. They're made on low numbers, so it's not something that they're still doing it the way they used to do it 60, 70 years ago. So from the type of the blade, the quality of the metal, the way they are built, they're already broken in a way that they're ready to use. So I do truly find it to be the best Venetian plaster trowels in the world. Okay. Here I have a spatula. This is a 100 mil spatula from the same manufacturer, the Pavan. Again, stainless steel, flexibility, the shape of the blade, and everything makes it ideal for Venetian plaster. One of the secrets of the Marmorino Supreme, which I'm about to demonstrate now, I always like to say that the main secret will be to apply it in a thin application. Okay. Marmorino Supreme is something that we would use to achieve something either smooth or matte, but generally talking, so either shiny or matte, but generally talking a smooth finish. So in order to be able to achieve that, we need to apply thin. Okay. So as I said, I have my first coat that has been previously applied, for say some time, that is now fully dry. When it comes to the fully drying of the first coat, I always say it has to be fully dry, because a lot of people ask me, how long will it take? It has to be fully dry. In the summer, it might take a couple of hours. In the winter, it might take a full day. Okay, so depending on the temperatures and airflow, substrates, thickness, and many other things, will vary on the drying time. As long as it's fully dry, you don't see any wet patches on it, it's ready to go. So here I have a little bit of material onto my trowel, okay? I apply a little bit and I take it off. Apply and I take it off. Apply, I take it off. Probably have to. So I'll get a little bit of more of material. If you have any questions in the meanwhile, please put them in the box and my colleague will give them to me. So a lot of people would ask me throughout the courses, how thin do we have to apply this material? And I always say that when we apply the second coat, if I run my finger on it, if I run my finger on the surface after the application, and I can remove any material that's too thick, okay? So it has to be a pretty tight coat, yeah? And the way we will do that is we apply the material, and when we take it off, we go with a bit of pressure, okay? What you do then at this stage, while it's still wet, so I hope you've seen the difference in between wet and dry, which is a characteristic of the lime plasters. From the wet to dry is a huge difference in color. As the plaster dries, you'll lighten up and come back to the dry tone. Okay. Then we will get the smaller trowel, the 200 millimeters one, and this is the trowel we use for the burnishing. Yeah? And burnishing is a technique that we use to make the Venetian plaster shine more. And we'll go around and what we are doing now is compressing the plaster so it becomes shiny. Burnishing the different stages of it being wet is equally important because we burnish a little bit when it's very wet, like it is now. We establish that flat surface. As the product dries, as it becomes more stiff, it's equally important to continue burnishing because that's when we start to get the best sheen out of the product. Okay. Please bear in mind, this is not the only way to apply Marmorino Supreme. Yeah? So throughout the courses, I do teach a bunch of stuff that would be impossible to bring it all in a 1 hour webinar because the Venetian Plaster course is a 3 day course. It's a very hands-on course. But there are a bunch of other ways to work with the same material, okay? This is what I call like the basic application to codes, yeah? Okay, so I'll try to get it closer a bit to the camera. Hopefully you can see it from different angles. Can it be seen? Can you see the sheen? Yeah. Of course, I can keep burnishing and what I just did before with the smaller trowel. And if I keep doing this, it will become even shinier. Okay. Also, if we want something matte, we would stop at this point once we got our pattern and layout. We would stop, and once dry, we could go back and sand the surface, as I mentioned previously, testing first with different grit sandpapers until you get a matte finish, or until you get rid of the sheen. That's how you can also achieve a matte finish. Okay, this was the Marmorino Supreme. Okay? If you have any questions on it about the course, oh, we do have. So regarding line content, what percentage would be considered good quality and what is considered low? I'll be honest with you, this is something that I wouldn't know because I don't know the exact answer. But what I'm looking from is something that should be more than 70% to be considered line plaster. I know for a fact that there are manufacturers around that would sell Marmorinos with 10% lime content and still advertise it as a lime plaster, which where I look from, and not just me, it's probably not the reality. So I think more than 70%, if I'm not wrong. This is not something that I've checked, so I can also come back on it and tell you more about that. Okay, good. So this was the Marmorino Supreme application. The size of the aggregate inside is no bigger than 0.3 millimeter. Okay, so this is the Marmorino Supreme. Good. I'll take this one down for now. So I have a question here. When would you opt for a two-coat process over a three-coat process? Are there any benefits to a three-coat over a two-coat? Very good question. There are different situations based on the finish we want to achieve. Yeah. So the three-coat process, I do it and I teach it in a way that is called wet on wet technique. We apply our second coat flat on top of the first coat dry, and immediately after we would go and apply a third coat. By doing this, we achieve an even smoother finish and many times even shinier. So this is something that I teach on the course. It's a very hands-on technique. So I like to teach it in person. The reason for that is because wet on wet technique is something that has to be um, someone has to be in control of the flow. So I like to see, I like to be there, and to be able to tell if anyone is doing it, wrong or not well, so I can correct where that is needed. So two coat option, like I've just demonstrated a little bit before, would be a finish for something that I call something like a hit and miss, if I can say so. I don't know if there is such a thing, but that's how I know it. So you do get a shiny Venetian plaster, but with imperfection. So you get those matte and shiny spots, and you still see the cloudiness and the variation that you would see in the Venetian plaster, but not in a perfect way. And actually, I found out that there's a lot of people that like this finish. If you want something that is much more smoother as a surface and is shinier, then you would go for a three-coat application. I'm talking about the Marmorino Supreme. Yeah, a good question. Thank you. What I will be showing you next and talking about next will be the Marmorino Fino. It's something that we sell. The manufacturer is Caparegini. I forgot to mention that the manufacturer of the Marmorino Supreme, the first one that I've shown you, is Impera Italia. So it's something developed by us, okay, here at Impera Italia. to the manufacturer. The next one, Marmorino Fino, something that is produced by Caparegini. The size of the aggregate inside the Marmorino Fino is in between 0.4 millimeters to no more than 0.7 millimeters. Okay, so there is an alternation of grains inside, which makes it, bigger than the Marmorino Supreme, but smaller than the ones to follow. Okay, one of the ways, actually, show you two ways of applying Marmorino Fino. Before I jump into that, I want to say that Marmorinos as products, and I'm talking about Marmorino Fino and the next one, which will be Classico, are, if not through the most versatile, probably one of the most versatile Venetian plasters that you can use. The reason for that is because we can achieve a huge variety of different finishes with the same material, from different types of fitted to flat finishes to, combination, street, rigged, scratched, stencils. There's a lot of stuff that we can do with the Marmorinos, and that's because thanks to the size of the aggregate inside and the workability. Okay. When it comes to the Marmorino Fino, I also want to touch base on something, and that is Tadalak. Okay, Tadalak is something that I hear a lot, and I hear a lot of both customers and students ask me about the Tadalak. So to make a short story about it, Tadalak is something that used to be done hundreds of years ago. That's what I know. Mostly in the Middle East countries, and even more than so, I think in Morocco. And it's something that used to, people who used to get dirt, what is called, and laid argile and laid on the walls in centimeters thickness. So we're talking about 3-4 centimeters. Yeah. They used to lay it on the walls and then rub it for days with stones, smooth stones and different soap in order to make the surface smooth and waterproof. And that's why in a lot of Moroccan bathrooms you would find Tadalak, because it was regarded as a very good product to work in wet areas. Right? As you'd imagine, in the today's world, especially in the cities, someone that would want Tadalak, I don't want to say it's impossible because it's not impossible, but it will be almost impossible to do it in a bathroom in today's society, because the cost, the labor, the timing, everything that goes around it to make the original Tadalak will make it so expensive and inefficient that it wouldn't be justified to be done. But that does not mean that we cannot have Tadalak in our bathrooms, because what we can do is recreate a Tadalak finish, okay? And we can also do this with Marmorino, okay? And in the 3 days Venetian Plaster course, we actually go on a bigger extent and talk and demonstrate more about the Tadalak finish, flat Marmorino finish, and how we can achieve that, the type of sealers we can use, where can we use it, where we cannot use it. So as I said, for as much as I want, it would be impossible to bring a 3-day course into an hour. But I just want to mention the Tadalak because it is a question that I get very often. And I also want to mention that I've seen quite a few companies around advertising that they sell Tadalak. Okay. And I would like to make a comment on that and say that I don't know of anyone that sell real Tadalak. There's a lot of people that sell different materials, Marmorinos, or something very similar that will help you recreate a Tadalak finish. But that shouldn't be confused with the fact that that is real Tadalak, because it's not. Okay, so we can definitely create Tadalak finish with Marmorinos. Okay, so I wanted to touch base on that. Marmorino Fino, I'll jump in to show you 2 different finishes. They're both pitted, 2 different techniques. And the reason I'm showing you this is because I found from all the courses I've been running that people are most keen to, and they're the happiest when I show them these 2 finishes. You can achieve amazing results with something that with a technique that it looks pretty basic. Once you know, it's very simple. Okay, so I'm gonna jump into it. I get the Marmorino Fino. Again, same principle. We had the primer applied, and once the primer is dry, we apply a flat coat. What I mean by a flat coat, you just go with the trowel and apply a smooth coat. Let that dry. The code of the color of this sample here is T523. And you would find this code in the 208 color chart that we have here for all the line-based plasters, okay? So this is Marmorino Fino in the T523. Something that I want to mention regarding the Marmorinos is as the size of the grid inside the Marmorino increases, so the coverage decreases, okay? So the thicker the material, the less square meters we can apply with the same amount of material. So Marmorino Supreme, being a much finer product, can go a much longer way. We can apply many more square meters than we would apply with Marmorino Fino, which have a bigger grain. Okay, so I want to mention this. But now, when it comes to Marmorino Fino, again, same thing again, the 1 kg pot. Stir again. It's always a good practice, say there is a small tub or a bigger tub, to give it a quick mix before you start using it. So no matter what the size of the tub is, it's always a good practice to give it a quick mix. If you have a bigger tub, I always recommend to get a mixer or even a combi driller, with a mixing paddle, and give it a quick stir. So what I'm gonna show you now is how to do pitted with the trowel, using just the trowel and the spatula. So I have a little bit of material on my spatula here, and what I will be doing is this. Hope you can all see it. So what I did, I've applied a little bit of material onto the trowel only on the top half. Yeah, so we don't do this all over the trowel. It's only here. And you'd see the thickness. I do have a fair amount of material in there, okay? So what I will do now with this, I'll just go around the surface and start dabbing very gentle. And I want to stress this out very gentle, because what I see a lot of people, they just go full in with full pressure and they end up with a very big spot, which is not what we want to achieve. So I always recommend start very slow until you start seeing something. Okay, so it's all about controlling your pressure. When you need more, repeat the same process. Okay, very gentle, go around and apply. Repeat the process. What you want to do is keep dabbing. Even if you feel like you don't have a lot of material on the trowel, keep dabbing, because that's how you end up creating all those very little dots in between, which you will see in a moment how valuable they are. I'm talking about all the very small dots in between. Okay? I'm not gonna apply any more than this because I want to show you something else as well. So once we've done this, again, depending on the temperature, depending on how quick the plaster will dry, we will get the clean trowel and go around and flatten it a little bit. Now, the pressure that I use now is very, very little. I'm going very gentle. The reason for that is if the material is still very fresh and you go with a lot of pressure, you'll end up with a flat thing again, which you don't want to. So you want to be very gentle, because you do not know, you cannot know at what stage the plaster is, if it's too soft or is it too hard. And the beauty of going very gentle is that if you want to go harder, you can always do that. But if you go with too much pressure, you cannot really go softer after that once you cause the damage that you didn't want to. So try to go in very gentle and flatten out the areas that you've done as a pitted. And if you come a little bit closer, now you'll see what I was talking about the very little dots in between, which in my perspective, and apparently not just mine, will create this natural looking finish. Okay. So this is something that we would call a pitted finish. Okay. Again, you can see the difference in between the wet and the dry. This is the same material that we use. It's actually the same tub that we use for the first coat. The only difference is that this is wet and this is dry. Okay. Once the wet plaster will dry, will be in the same color as this. Okay. Now, if you want to, you can stop now in the application in the stage that I'm in now and get a more rough surface. If you want something a bit smoother onto the surface, you'd go around and trowel a bit more until you get a smoother surface onto the top beads of the pitted. Okay. Any questions? Do we have any questions regarding this technique? Okay, good. What I'm going to show you now, for people that don't have a lot of experience with the trowel, I'm going to show you a very easy technique. Okay, you would still have to do the first coat with the trowel. You have to have it pretty flat. For the second coat, I'll use a sea sponge. And there is a reason why I use a sea sponge, okay? And that is because of the irregularities. It's not a flat sponge. We want something with irregularities, okay? So what I would do in this case, I would just get a board, a piece of board or something. And I would get some Marmorino onto the board. Yeah, so this is what I just did, okay? And then I would get my sponge, dip it in the material, and then with the sponge, go around and dab. Okay, so you see how I'm just dabbing into the wet material and then going around and dabbing onto the wall. This is a very, very simple technique that can be done by anyone, regardless of the amount of experience someone has with the trowel. Okay. Of course, if you want something busier, just go heavier. If you want something a bit more light, just leave some spaces, so don't go as heavy. It's also a very enjoyable technique. Now, this is a very small area that I have just applied, but the principle will be the same. And that is, we would let this go off, not dry, but go off a little bit. So until it becomes a little bit stiffer, and then we would get a trowel and go back and slightly, very gentle, flatten it. I'm not going to do it just now because the material here is still very fresh, as you can see. Okay, so I'll let it stiffen a little bit. I'll put this on the side and we'll come back to it in a few minutes. Okay. Also, again, if you have any questions, please put them in the questions box. Okay. So I'll leave this on the side for now. Just put it here. And I will bring up the Marmorino Classico. Different color. Okay. Now with the Marmorino Classico, it has a grain no bigger than 0.7 millimeters, but is mostly 0.7 millimeters, which compared to Marmorino Fino, which has in between 0.4 and 0.7 max, here we have mainly 0.7. Okay, so we tend to get a little bit of a more coarse material in a way. It's something that cannot be perceived immediately unless someone has the experience with both of them. But I strongly encourage you to get, maybe 1 kg of each and experience the difference for yourself. Something with the Marmorino Classico, on the other hand, this is a San Marco product, so it's produced by San Marco. The fire rating Euro class A1, UK class 0. Life cycle assessment, ideal product for project where all possible accreditations and certificates are required. So this will be the material that has all the papers. Every single paper from cost sheet, data sheet, certifications, this material has them all. Okay, so when it comes to working on a project where all these things are required, this will be a product. And not just for that, and as I promised earlier a little bit, I'll bring up a surprise. And that surprise are stencils. Okay, and I'll ask my colleague if he can hand me down a stencil. Thank you. This is something, stenciling is something that we do not teach in the 3D Venetian Blaster course. Okay, so I can explain and talk about it a little bit throughout the course, but we do not teach this. The reason for that is for those who already attended the course with us, is because, not because I don't want to share, is because there's a lot of information in the 3D Venetian Plaster course and a lot of practice to do. It's a very hands-on course. And a lot of people at the end of the course tend to agree with me that any more than that, what we teach already, would have been a bit too much. So that is the reason that I don't go into the stencils, because there is a bit more to talk about it. But I wanted to bring up the point that we also do sell these stencils. Okay, so again, a lot of people ask me, when can we get them? And we sell quite a big variety of it. And I strongly encourage you to go on the website, Impera Italia, and look at the section stencils, where you'll find a catalog with all those stencils we sell. Okay, and because I talked about the stencils and I've shown you this, I say, why not demonstrate a little bit with the Marmorino Classico? Okay, same principle here. We have the primer, Epic Fondo Universale. We apply the coat onto the board. Once that was dry, we apply the first coat of Marmorino Classico in a flat and uniform manner, and that is fully dry. Okay. When it comes to the questions, I got a question here. Is this waterproof? Can be applied on bottom? It's a good question. It's a good question that does not come with an easy answer. And the reason I'm saying this is because the answer is both yes and no. And I know I get a lot of people saying that are probably not full into my mind when I say this, but I'm going to explain now why. Marmorino can definitely be made waterproof in a way that can be applied in a bottom, but it will not be the product I would recommend to apply in a bottom if that bottom will be used a lot. Okay, so I'm just going to make examples. For example, if there is a family of 4 living in a 3-bedroom house, a flat, and they only have 1 bathroom, we presume that that shower will be used at least 4 times a day. In that situation, I would definitely not recommend to apply any type of Venetian plaster in the wet area, being the shower area. The Venetian plaster, in this situation of Marmorino, can be achieved and done in a way that becomes smooth, and then we can apply what is called stucco sealer into coats to make the surface waterproof, and then we can apply wax, which will work perfectly as long as the surface is not being used so intense. On the other hand, I have done a project a few years back in the house that had 8 bathrooms. One of them was in the basement around the swimming pool areas, and that was a bathroom that would get used probably once a month, if. And the customer asked me to do some Marmorino in the shower area because they had the same finish everywhere. And yes, I did it. Okay. So I would like to encourage you to use your own discernment where you can use Venetian plaster in the shower area and where you cannot. Me personally, generally, I always recommend to use microcement, which is something that I'll be talking another webinar, not today. But microcement is a product that is designed for wet areas, floors and walls. Okay, so if I were to summarize, if Marmorino can be used in a wet area, I'm talking about the shower area, I'd rather say no than yes, for the reasons that I've just said to you before. Okay. I have another question. Can you use all Marmorinos for stencils? Absolutely. Yes. You can use anything for stencils. You can also use paints, for example. So if you were to put a stencil up to the wall and use a little sponge that you dab in a paint, you can go around and dab on it, and you can use anything. As you will see, the main difference in between using different sizes of Marmorino for the stencils will be, again, the thickness, which is given by the size of the aggregate inside. So you use a Marmorino with a bigger aggregate inside, you'll get what I call a little bit more drama. So you get a little bit more depth. You get a more pronounced stencil finish. Use something thinner, you'll get something not as thick. Okay. So yes, good question. You can use all Marmorinos for stencils. Okay. So I'll demonstrate a little bit now. I have to warn you, you need a very special course. I'm joking. Okay. You don't need anything. It's a very simple process and application, as long as you are being patient. And I'm not joking here. The first times that I ever did stencils, because I'm a generally very impatient person, I ruined them. Okay, so I strongly recommend when you do stencil work, take your time and patience. Make sure you have everything in place that you need, and do it in a calm manner. So what I will do with the stencil now, I'm not going to do all of it. I'm just going to do a little bit for the sake of demonstration. So what I always recommend is to use a bit of masking tape to fit the stencil in place, to make sure it stays there. So if this would be your wall, you'd want to make sure that wherever you want to do the stencils is well fixed. So you don't have to worry about stencils falling off whilst you do the application. Okay. So now I'll use the Marmorino Classico, which is this. The color is T542, again, from the catalog of the line-based Venetian plasters that we have. I'll leave the Marmorino Fino open because I'll also use both a little bit to see how it can just go wild. So what I'll do now, I'll grab a little bit of material to my trowel, and then with the spatula, I would go and get a little bit of material. I'll do it again. Can you see it? Okay. And then very gentle, I would go around and apply. When I say very gentle, you don't want to use a trowel and go fully on it, because what happens then, the material will have the tendency to go under the stencil. So you want to make sure you go soft, and you also want to make sure that when you apply, the stencil stays onto the surface, onto the wall. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get a little bit of the other material just for fun and try to do a little bit more in here with a different color. Maybe we can get a little bit here, a little bit here. Now the colors are just random, I just so what I'm doing now is just to show, a possibility, but the possibility are really endless. So by the time you combine the colors you want and the applications you want, you can achieve literally a limitless amount of finishes. Okay, I'm not gonna go anymore now, and I'll take the stencil off first, untape it, and now very gentle, we'll just pull it off, and we end up with something like this. Okay, I must say it is pretty satisfying, even though I have been doing it for quite a few times now. It is very satisfying. So you see how even using different colors, or just if you put your imagination to play, you end up with a lot of things. Please go on the website and have a look at the all different stencils that we do. There's definitely variety in many interesting designs. So, okay. If you have any questions regarding what I've just done, please put it in the box. Okay. What I'll do now, I'll take our board up that we did previously with the sponge application. And now, because the material became much stiffer, okay, I can go around and I can flatten it. Okay, if you can come a bit closer, you'll see. Okay. I always like to say that what I'm showing you is not a finish, but a technique. The reason I'm saying this is because, first of all, you can use the same technique with different materials. Marmorino Fino, Marmorino Classico. You could possibly even use Marmorino Fino, Marmorino Supreme. Also, what you can do, you can change colors. So have a different color for the first coat, a different color for the second coat. Also, you can repeat the process. So once you've done this coat and it's fully dry, you can repeat the same process again, like I've done with the trowel and the sponge, with a different color. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. You can create different layers with different colors. So really is limitless. That's what I like to think. And I like to say that what I'm showing is a technique rather than a finish. Okay. So this is where my demonstration ends. Yeah. To do a quick recap, the first one that we did today was the Marmorino Supreme, which is here. Okay. And you see it lighting up already. The pretty smooth finish. But remember, this would not be the product to use if you want a very glossy Venetian plaster. Okay. So we do have quite a big range of different Venetian plasters when it comes to very glossy and shiny surface. So this is something that we would use for something that is glossy but not too glossy. Okay. Then the second one that we used was the Marmorino Fino in two different pretty techniques, one with the trowel, the other one with the sponge. And then I've shown you the Marmorino Classico, where we did the stencil, the beautiful stencil. Okay. Also, we have the fourth material, which is called marmoretto. Marmoretto, I don't have it here, um, is a powdered product. Can also be colored, okay? But before the application has to be mixed with water. Is definitely a less expensive option to the previous ones, which makes it, more affordable, if I can say so. And here it goes. This is one of the finishes that, thank you so much. This is a finish that is actually done with Marmoretto in two coats application. Okay, the color is Etna. Yes, so if you'd like something like this, Etna um, color. Again, primer. First coat was applied nice and flat, left to dry, and then the second coat was applied in a alternate, what's it called, in a okay manner, and then burnished. Here is just as it comes with no wax. Whether it's on the bottom, we also applied the wax on it. So you can see how the wax sometimes can change the appearance of the plaster. Okay. We have a question. Can we apply three marmorinos applied next to each other now so we can see the texture difference and compare them? For as much as I would love to do, I can do that. I don't mind it, but you wouldn't see it in the camera. And actually, what I always say, the best thing, the best way to see the difference in the marmorino is by literally applying them. And when I say this, when you have the trowel in your hands and you go over the surface, you will feel the grip inside, and you will also see the thickness. I mean, I don't mind, if we come closer with the camera, let's just turn it this way. So I'll start with the Marmorino Supreme, which is the finest. I'll take a little bit, and I need to come really close. So this is the Marmorino Supreme, which you see is very fine. Okay? Then the next one will be the Marmorino Fino. And here we already have a bit of more thickness because of the grit. And the third one will be the Marmorino Classico. Now, as I said, from this point and perspective, from my, from where I look from, you don't see a lot. The main difference will be in the workability, in the finish you can achieve, in the thickness, so it can only be understood from my perspective once you apply them. Okay? For as much as I would like to give this information, most of the times it's not possible until you try it for yourself. So, workability is also different. The way the material, reacts, stays on the wall, dries. The way the material will behave when you go and compact it is different from one material to another. And for as much as I would like to give this information, it's almost impossible until someone tries it and understands it on their own. That's why I do recommend if you haven't done it, to take a 3 days Venetian Plaster course, because the amount of information and the amount of the things that we discuss about it is huge. Where I look from is huge. That's why I also don't, as I've said before, I don't add anything to it unless somebody really asks me to. I don't mind sharing. I hold no secrets. But we go to every single process. We go to the application of all these materials, and you get a much better understanding of how these materials works. And as I said, for as much as I would really love to share everything I know in an hour, it will be literally impossible. Okay? So I think if you don't have any other questions, I would say we came to finish. What I would ask you kindly, please, would be maybe if you can send us an email or a message, or even in the comments box, and leave us a suggestion with what you'd like to see next. What would you like me to talk more about in this webinar? Okay, so and based on the highest response rate, the most answers, we will take a decision and do that. So I hope you really enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something today. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in person on the courses. Thank you so much.